Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. We'll start with some matchups to watch between LSU and UCLA as we start inching closer to Tigers and Bruins. 2:30 scheduled kick, 2:45 actual kick inside Tiger Stadium. So if you're going to be there, you've got a couple of extra minutes. The listed start time is going to be a little bit later. If you're running around in the morning or lunchtime at Saturday and want to make sure you're getting back, you've got a little bit of a buffer there until 2:45 when LSU and UCLA are actually scheduled to crank things up inside of Tiger Stadium. We're going to talk a lot about UCLA today and tomorrow, and the overwhelming theme, which you already know, is that they're not very good. You're all very well aware they went out to Hawaii, and they were leading for 1 minute of the 60 in that game, and then they came home after a bye week and got embarrassed by Indiana. So it's not a good football team. That'll be the theme, but I do think there are some things to watch because it's not like LSU is some kind of world beater. We're all very well aware that LSU was in a 2-point game against Nicholls in the second half, okay? So it's not like LSU can just roll the ball out there, go ahead and take care of business and get a win. I don't think South Carolina is going to win 5 or 6 league games, and LSU went to the wire, and that one was down 17-0. So there's still football to break down here. There's still something to talk about between LSU and UCLA. So I wrote for LouisianaSports.net a piece that's up there. It was published yesterday, but I want to kind of go in depth here on the radio for those that didn't get a chance to check it out and talk about some matchups that I want to see in this game coming up. We'll start on the line of scrimmage with UCLA's interior offensive line and LSU's defensive tackle rotation. We, for the first time last week, got a look at what LSU is going to do without Jacoby and Guillory. That was a question because everything beyond Jacoby and Guillory at that position group is a question. Gio Paez has moved from end to tackle, and he's a transfer. Ahmad Bro is a freshman. Paris Shand is moving from end to tackle. Jalen Lee's been a backup his whole career. Sean Washington was just in JUCO. JVR Suggs was just at Grand Valley State. Kimo Makaniole played on the offensive line. Everybody's moving. Guillory was the only guy who was a tackle and is a tackle. Everybody else has been moving around. And we saw that rotation for the first time on Saturday. And it broke down like this, according to Pro Football Focus. Gio Paez played 39 snaps. Ahmad Bro, the true freshman, played 31 snaps. Now, Paris Shand played 37 snaps in the game on defense. He split those between end and tackle, but he's certainly in that rotation. Those are the guys that took the lion's share of the reps, Paez, Bro, and Shand. The spell guys, the relief guys, were Jalen Lee for 13 snaps, Sean Washington for 11, JVR Suggs for 5, and Kimo Makaniole for 2. So those guys are only playing here and there. They were not atrocious in the game on Saturday. Like, it's not their fault when Rocket Sanders takes a handoff off left end and Whit Weeks does not fill his assignment and the guy busts it down the sideline. That's not the defensive tackle's fault. And it wasn't like South Carolina, every time they wanted to, just got 5, 6, 8, 10 yards on the ground. They held their own. Are they playmakers? No. Are they going to be playmakers? Probably not. But they need to hold their own. Now, UCLA, it's puzzling why they haven't gotten any running game going because they pounded the football last year. They led the Pac-12 in yards per game rushing. They ran it for over 200 yards 6 different times. Like, the identity of this offense was expected to be the running game, and they bring back some beef on the interior offensive line. Spencer Holstage is a fifth-year senior at left guard. He made 31 starts at Purdue before transferring last year. He started 11 for UCLA last year. Josh Carlin moves from right guard to center, but he was a starter. Those two guys weigh over 315 pounds, and they bring in Alani Makihili. Probably didn't get that right, but you get the point. He's their right guard at 6'3", 350 pounds. They are old there. They are big there. And when you look at LSU's defensive tackles, you realize that Bro and Shand are closer to 275. Shand because he's been an end most of the time, and Bro because he's a true freshman. Paez is 305, but LSU didn't have a 320-pound space eater in there. And UCLA is pretty big. Now, they hadn't run the ball worth squat in their first 2 games. They've tried 46 carries for just 167 yards. They haven't topped 100 yards rushing against Hawaii or Indiana. So we'll see how much UCLA tries to run it. I'm going to talk about their backs and receivers later on in this hour, but my gut would say they would try to run the ball. They're not exactly a juggernaut throwing it. And we'll see how LSU responds to that. I'm curious about how that matchup plays out, and we certainly know that how LSU's tackles respond to this position that they've been put in, which is new for all of them now. It's a tenuous spot for LSU. I think that's a big deal because UCLA is very veteran up front in the middle of their offensive line. That's a big, big spot to watch. Second piece, LSU wide receivers against the UCLA corners. I like LSU's wide receivers big time in this matchup. Kyron Lacey is balling out. He's been fantastic. He's got 5 touchdowns in 3 games. He's made 17 catches over 3 games. He's averaging over 13 yards a catch. That is all great, and I think we're all encouraged with what we saw from Aaron Anderson last week. He stretched the field a little bit. He's quicker. He looks faster. He's making catches. He's excited. It's a far cry from the guy that we saw last year. And then we'll see. I think Kyle Parker is going to be good to go. I think the best we've seen, the best is yet to come for C.J. Daniels. He hasn't really gotten moving yet. Just 11 catches in the 3 games, 143 yards, no touchdowns. He can play, and I think he's going to be ready to roll. Incidentally, you can catch my question and answer session with the rest of the media and C.J. Daniels up at LouisianaSports.net. But I digress. LSU's wide receiving core is talented, and I think they can really cook against this UCLA secondary. Last year, UCLA secondary was really good. Their whole defense was really good under DeAnton Lynn. But you lost Alex Johnson, who was a corner last year. He's moved on to the New York Giants. You lost John Humphrey. He followed Lynn to USC. So now what do you have in the secondary for UCLA? Well, you got a bunch of transfers. Brian Addison from Oregon's in. Ramon Henderson from Notre Dame is in. KJ Wallace from Georgia Tech is in. All of them started games at their previous stops, but they're in year 1 at UCLA. So how have they fared through 2 games? Well, not so great, it turns out. Curtis Rourke, who I don't think is going to win the Heisman Trophy. I don't think he'll be the Unitas winner. I don't think he's going to make room on that trophy shelf for the Maxwell Award. He's just Indiana's quarterback. Just a fine young man and a solid player. Well, what did he do in the Rose Bowl last week? 25 of 33 for 307 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. I can't promise you that I know everything about Indiana's receiving core or young Curtis Rourke, the quarterback. But
I know about Curtis Rourke.
Tell me about Curtis Rourke.
Curtis Rourke was a quarterback at Ohio in the MAC. He was
the Bobcats.
Yes, and his brother Nathan was actually a quarterback before in there. Both very good quarterbacks. Nathan's in the NFL now.
Lovely.
And Curtis is he's pretty good, man. Honestly, he was really good at Ohio. And
is he going to be invited to the Heisman Trophy ceremony?
Probably not.
Okay.
However, I don't think Lenora
Maxwell
Sellers
Award?
is either.
It's tough. It's a tough scene.
It is.
But theoretically, we're flipping the sides of the ball there because we're talking about LSU's offense, not their defense.
Yes.
So either way, I think LSU's offense is going to feast against this UCLA secondary that was not good last week, and it was not good against Hawaii. If you total the passing yardage from Hawaii and Indiana against UCLA, 50 of 75, 67% completion, 534 yards, and 5 touchdowns. The Bruins did get a pick, 2 of those in Honolulu, but Hawaii moved the ball through the air for a lot of that game, and I think LSU can do the exact same. This is where I think LSU's got a huge advantage in the game. So the first matchup, we're talking about UCLA's interior offensive line against LSU's DTs. LSU needs to hold their own. This matchup, LSU wide receivers versus those DBs, you got to eat. You got to make it happen, and we'll see if they can do that. Last one, and we've talked about this a little bit, and we mentioned it with the UCLA Locked On UCLA podcast that we talked to yesterday. How does UCLA handle the weather? And I think they'll be okay. It's been warm in Southern California. They played a game in Hawaii where it was 89 degrees. Game time temperature is supposed to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 91, 92 on Saturday, and you're talking about a heat index of somewhere around 101 at kickoff around 2:45, pushing 3 o'clock. It'll be hot then. And that sun is going to stay on that sideline for the entirety of the game. I don't think this is going to make a huge deal, but I don't want to rule it out. And so I just want to be aware of that. If LSU gets into a tough competitive game in the second half, does UCLA start to wear down a little bit? Because not only is the sun and the weather a factor for these guys that have been running around in 65-degree temps this week, but UCLA is not the deepest team that LSU has seen. Realize that the transfer portal opens up. They're in a coaching change. They lost a lot of players. Your defensive coordinator goes somewhere else. That's a big deal. So they lost a lot of guys. They're not deep and talented here at UCLA. If the numbers start to become an issue, if cramps start to become an issue, if fatigue starts to become an issue, I think it's more likely to go on UCLA's side than it is LSU's side, especially because they're going to be in the sun the entirety of the game because they're standing on the east sideline. And anyone who's been inside that stadium knows the east side can get real brutal real quick for some of these early kickoffs in September. So those are kind of the three matchups that I'm looking for. We've got a lot more to talk about. I want to get more in-depth with UCLA's skill position players and their quarterback moving forward. But those are three that I'm looking at. If you want to read a little bit more deeply into that, you can do so at louisianasports.net. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.